Welcome to the channel. Today I'll tell you why Dolores Umbridge is the most hateful villain of all time. I know. Another Harry Potter video, another Harry Potter fan who thinks they have uncovered some untold truth on a subject that has been done thousands of times before over the past 20 something years. I myself can't believe it either. How dead can one dead horse be beaten? Apparently, infinitely. With the new HBO Harry Potter series coming out in 2027, there is no better time to revisit the Harry Potter universe. Now, why should you listen to me instead of the more established, well known essays on this? Well, as Sirius once said to Harry, the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters. We've all got light and dark inside us. What matters is the part we choose to act on. That's who we really are. Which, in YouTube terms, mean why not give me a try? Choose the light inside you. Who knows? I might surprise you. In worst case, you watch me fail. Who doesn't like a good failure? We know Dolores doesn't. Before we dive in, who do you believe is the most hateful character? Let me know in the comments below. And when I'm done, let me know if I change your mind, if yours is not Dolores Umbridge. Quick warning, spoilers ahead. If you're brand new to Harry Potter, this might ruin a few surprises for you. So maybe pause here and come back later. But if you've been around since, 1997, you've had a couple decades and you already know who Dolores Umbridge is, well, you probably hate her as much as I do. So get ready to relive the trauma of Dolores Umbridge. Let's start with the intro. Amongst our favorite villains, the one we love to hate, such as, the Joffrey Baratheon, President Snow, Homelander, Miss Trunchbull, none of them hold a candle to Dolores Umbridge. She's the most detestable, vindictive, and irredeemable of them all. And today, I'll prove you why she takes the crown. Who is Dolores Umbridge? For those who only had the displeasure of meeting her in the movies, I assure you, she is far worse in the books. Dolores Umbridge was first introduced in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, first as a senior undersecretary to the Minister of Magic. From there, she became the Defense Against the Dark Art professor to spy for Cornelius Fudge, and through her usual cunning, quickly rose to High Inquisitor and finally headmistress at Hogwarts. She perfectly created a façade to project a sweet, caring, and kind lady. Just like her perfectly chosen pink wardrobe, her manufactured voice, and her ridiculous girlish laugh. Umbridge would be the embodiment of a cat lady, except that aside from being obsessed with cat, she was vile, cruel, and always unfair. Umbridge was cosplaying a sweet person, in other words, except that at every opportunity where she had the upper hand, she could never commit to the part. And every single time, she chose cruelty. And if I'm being generous, we can find exactly one time she did a quote-unquote good deed. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, in Chapter 11, The Bribe, she let Mundungus Fletcher off for trading magical artifacts without a license. Now, Dolores did not do this out of the kindness of her heart. She did it to buy Mundungus silence and steal the locket, and later she pretended that it was a family heirloom. Tut, the liar. We'll talk about this more later, but for now, let's dive into my argument. The first exhibit I'm going to present will be the Dementors attacked. Now we need to set the stage. We need to go back to the end of the fourth book, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. At the end of this book, Cedric Diggory is dead, and Harry announces that Voldemort is back. From this moment on, Cornelius Fudge see both Harry and Dumbledore as threat to his position in the Ministry. Now, in the fifth book, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Harry and his cousin Dudley are attacked by two Dementors. This triggers a series of events that lands Harry on trial in front of the Wizengamot, charged under the Decree for the Reasonable Restriction of Underage Sorcery. I had to write this down because I can never say it properly. In Harry's defense, Dumbledore suggests that Cornelius Fudge might be losing control of the Dementors, and they might be taking orders from someone else. Umbridge intervened, offended on behalf of Cornelius at this outrageous claim. However, in chapter 32, Out of the Fire, we find out that she in fact did send these two Dementors. Now, we need to understand, Dolores knew that Harry had not lied about the Dementors, that he defended himself out of necessity. And yet, when it came time to raise their hand to vote if he should be expelled, she still raised her hand to have him expelled. This is only the beginning of Umbridge's act of deceit, and it really started laying out Umbridge's psyche. Umbridge had never met Harry Potter before. He never did anything to her directly, and the Ministry of Magic had already spent the whole summer trying to discredit and mock Harry and Dumbledore. This decision that she took to send the Dementors was unwarranted, unprompted, and unprovoked. But in Umbridge's warped mind, it made perfect sense because Umbridge does not like disruptors, and anyone who is a threat to her perfect worldview needs to be punished. What solely mattered to her was to regain and retain control. A Dementor's kiss is one of the worst fate you can wish on someone. They suck your soul out of you, and you exist as a literal shell of yourself with no possibility of reverting. If this alone is not horrifying enough, we have to remember in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, in chapter 20, The Dementor's Kiss, they tried to kiss Harry and Hermione. Umbridge knew this. We know because as Fudge Undersecretary, she would have been fully aware. I will argue that Umbridge did not know that Harry Potter could produce a Patronus, so she was perfectly fine with him getting the Dementor's kiss. And she did not send one but two Dementors after Harry. Dudley would have also been kissed. Collateral damage meant absolutely nothing to her. To continue to put this into perspective, let's compare Dolores' decision with the sentence the Ministry gave to Voldemort's most loyal supporters, the Lestrange. Now, the Lestrange tortures I can never pronounce it. The Lestrange tortured the Longbottoms into insanity, a crime that was so cruel to the whole magical community that they were sentenced to life in Azkaban. In contrast to this, in Umbridge's twisted mind, Harry Potter, the liar, the disruptor, a 15-year-old boy, whom she never met, I might add, deserved worse than the Lestrange. She believed he deserved the Dementor's kiss, just because Harry dared to threaten her world order. Now, Dolores Umbridge did not care if the punishment fit the crime. She did not care about any casualty. She was willing to go to any length necessary to restore order, and would have happily do so regardless of whom she hurt in the process. And because she always found a way to justify her actions, she always doubled down because she believed that people knew they deserved to be punished. That is Dolores Umbridge for you. My Exhibit B will be the Muggle-Born Registration Commission. At the end of the 5th book, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, everyone is aware that Voldemort is back. Now, in the 7th book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Voldemort takes over the ministry and the regime completely changed. The thing with Umbridge is she fell right in with the new program. She became the head of the Muggle-Born Registration Commission. The goal of this commission was to question the legitimacy of Muggle-born witches and wizards by having them provide proof that they had not stolen their wands or their magic. Remember earlier I mentioned she let Mundungus go and then later claimed the locket was a family heirloom? Well, she claimed that the S of the locket stood for Selwyn, a pureblood family. However, Dolores was not pureblood. According to Pottermore's archives, she was born of a wizard father and a Muggle mother. Yet, she reveled in causing terror to whom she deemed beneath her. And just like Umbridge voted to get Harry expelled for lying about the Dementors when she knew she sent them, here again is another act of deceit. Her mind was so twisted that she found a way to get proximity to power, and that went as far as pretending her status of pure blood above all else. The Muggle-Born Registration Commission was another way for Umbridge to feel powerful, to gain control of who she deemed inferior. The consequences of this commission were far more insidious than imaginable, but were already established that she does not care about victims or casualties. During her time as head of the Muggle Registration Commission, in typical Umbridge fashion, she wrote an article printed on a pink pamphlet with a golden title, Mudbloods and the Dangers They Pose to a Peaceful Pureblood Society. And while we never got to read the pamphlet in the book, She was actively campaigning to have Muggle-borns persecuted and seen as threat, targeting them all while falsely claiming that she herself was pure-blood. The problem with this commission was that it uprooted families, witches and wizards alike, who had lived their life as such since they were 11, since they received their letters, and since their one had chosen them. These Muggle-born had to justify themselves without any real chance of convincing this commission that their magic was not stolen. This commission was a complete chaos. People were fleeing, like Mary Cattermole, who needed to flee with her family, or Dean Thomas and Ted Tunk, who ended up fleeing also their home because they knew that these trials were nothing but a sham. These trials were also used as great pressure point on the victims and their family, like when Ron was Mr. Reginald Cattermole and he was being pressured by Yaxley to have his request be a top priority, with heavy hints at retaliating during his wife's trial if he didn't get his way. At heavy hints of retaliating during his wife's trial if he didn't get his way. This trial were not fair. It was stacked against the Muggle-born, creating a new world order where they would be at the bottom, disadvantaged, rounded up to be sent to Azkaban. And worse yet, her commission created a whole new group of snatchers who were rounding up the runners. These snatchers were often unqualified, brutal, and repulsive, like Greyback, and at times, often these snatchers were a death sentence for those who naturally fought back. Ted Tonks was among the murdered, and countless others as a direct result of the terror her commission brought forward. She also kept a file of undesirable to be watched with Harry Potter as undesirable number 1, who needed to be punished. She was still on a crusade to break him, regardless of the many times she and the ministry was wrong in the past, and in fact, he did not tell lies. Some might be tempted to suggest that her action in Deathly Hallows were because she was wearing the locket, that it corrupted her. I disagree. The locket did not make Umbridge evil. It simply amplified what was already there. And let's not forget, her vileness was well established in the Order of the Phoenix way before the locket. With the locket, she was free. At once, she dropped the act. If anything, I say that the locket allowed us to see who she really was when she had power. Dolores Umbridge was just a tyrant with a soul as dark as charcoal. If you're not convinced yet, I do have more exhibit. My exhibit C will be her terror reign at Hogwarts. During her 10 years at Hogwarts, she proceeded to terrorize any sympathizer of Harry and Dumbledore, teachers and students alike. She made them write lines with their own, not the teachers obviously, the student. She made them write lines with their own blood, with her cursed quill that scarred the phrase into their skin. The quill was her own invention. She took immense pleasure in torturing Harry Potter for hours on end throughout the whole year, making him write, "I must not tell lies," over and over and over again. She wanted to break him, she wanted to punish him, and the more Harry resisted, the more she persisted, greatly enjoying it. During her time at Hogwarts, away from Cornelius, using his own paranoia, she sought to gain more power, to shape the school to her image, reporting to him what she wanted. She took it as a challenge to discredit Dumbledore, to break the reign of loyalty the teachers and students had for him, to be the one to bring the school in line once and for all. Again and again, she tightened the noose around the student and staff, decrees after decrees. First, she disbanded all the organizations, societies, teams, group, and club. Then she reserved the right to give permission to reform them. She also had authority over all punishment, sanction, and removal of privilege. She then banned the Quibbler magazine so they wouldn't read Harry Potter's interview with Rita Skeeter. She also banned the teachers from discussing anything unrelated to their subject. She punished high and low and sent a clear message that you either fall in line and be in her good favor, or you were to be punished. She openly hated the student and wanted to be loved, revered, and feared all at once. When she became the High Inquisitor under the false pretense that things were far worse at Hogwarts, the ministry gave her full power to evaluate the teachers and take actions as she see fit. She created the Inquisition. She created the Inquisitorial Squad, giving them powers without impunity, more control than prefects and head boys and girls, by allowing them to punish without any supervision. It also says a lot that the only ally she found at Hogwarts was Mr. Filch, who dreamed of the time students used to be hanged by their toes in the dungeon. So he says, Umbridge took pleasure in discrediting teachers, especially those she believed were beneath her. Take Sybil Trelawney. Was she a fraud? Perhaps. A debate can be made. But Umbridge enjoyed the power of scrutinizing her the moment she knew she held power over her. She placed her on probation first, then publicly humiliated her, and then gleefully tried to expel her from the school. And then there was Hagrid. Not the most skilled teacher, nor the wisest role model. But to Umbridge, his real crime was his blood. She despised him as a half-breed. She mocked him in front of his student, speaking to him like he was an idiot, deliberately trying to rattle him until he became flustered to fit in her own narrative. In her arrogance, though, Umbridge was only as powerful when she had the upper hand. When facing the students, she was a teacher. When facing the teachers, she was the High Inquisitor. When facing the school resistance, well, she was the headmistress. But out in the Forbidden Forest, facing the Centaurs, she lost that power and that advantage, and she quickly resorted to violence, attacking one of the Centaurs and demanding order and respect. Well, we can say that she tried that tactic, except that with the Centaurs, she had no real powers, and she was nearly killed for it. Worse yet, aside from all this, she tried to give Harry Potter Veritaserum without his knowledge to have information on Dumbledore's in Sirius Black, and very much considered using the Cruciatus curse on him to loosen his tongue, one of the forbidden curse. In the school, Umbridge saw the opportunity to gain more power from Cornelius, and where she could have created change for the best, raise valid questions, and bring forth new ways, she ended up becoming a terror to teachers and students and immediately reverted to corporal punishment. And the more her authority was defied, the more she lashed out and doubled down, because it was never about the well-being of the students or concern about the school. It was always about Dolores Umbridge needing her worldview to be at all time respected and feared, and her need to gain more power. My last exhibit will be honorable mention of other Umbridge's delightful acts. Dolores had such a need for control. She needed everyone to yield to her. And she did not take lightly to any perceived disrespect and went to untold lengths to fix the world around her to fit her worldview, always justifying her action by saying the punishment was deserved. We already established that Dolores had a prejudice against Hagrid and wanted to get rid of him. In the failed attempt to arrest him because she believed he had been putting nifflers in her office, again, she proved her disproportionate response. She didn't simply fire him, she wanted him arrested and sent to Azkaban. And so in the dead of night, she and her lackeys attacked him. Remember how I previously mentioned she also had very little thought for casualties? In this ridiculous display of power, Professor McGonagall was struck by no fewer than 4 stunning spells. In comparison, in Prisoner of Azkaban, in Chapter 19, The Hungarian Horntail, it took about 7 or 8 stunning spells to take down a dragon. So Professor McGonagall, unprepared, received half that simply for daring to question her. Obviously, this could have easily killed her. But Umbridge did not care because, again, casualty meant nothing to her. And funny enough, she also put Snape on probation for failing to provide more Veritaserum so she could force Harry Potter to drink it and tell her the truth about Dumbledore and Sirius Black. Let's not forget that she also introduced an anti-werewolf legislation, making it impossible for them to find jobs. This condemned Lupin and countless other werewolves to barely scraping by and being further ostracized, isolated, and desperate. In one of the last acts, she also was using Mad Eye Moody's eyes in her office to spy on her employees. Mad Eye was one of the best Aurors the Ministry had. After all these years of service and after being killed so brutally and shamelessly, she had no issue using his magic eye for her own use to control and terrorize her employees. If this isn't grotesque, honestly, I don't know what else is. What I'm trying to say is, each of these acts, large or small, reveals the same truth. Dolores Umbridge cruelty for any perceived disrespect knew no bound. She thrived on it, she justified it, and never once cared about the wreckage she left behind. I rest my case, and my closing argument would be Dolores Umbridge is the most hateful character of all time. She's evil and cruel, a true villain. A villain who deeply affected our protagonist, Harry Potter, because we knew Harry never forgave the Ministry for what happened at Hogwarts under Umbridge. Umbridge is the perfect villain because we love to hate her for a very valid reason. But Umbridge is also a very detestable villain because she always acts on her emotion, punishing you while trying to convince you deep down you know you deserve it and that what she's doing is for your own good. And that, frankly, is terrifying. Her anger and her unpredictability made her a menace. Every time when given the chance to do good, to rectify the situation, it's like she couldn't control herself. She dug in her ill. She dug in her ills. I cannot pronounce this word. She dug in she dug in her heels and lashed out, leaving behind her broken victims. Umbridge was not Voldemort. She was much worse. She was worse because she inflicted lasting trauma, death, and chaos without ever casting a killing curse. So yes, Dolores Umbridge takes the crown as the most hateful villain because she made us feel powerless, anxious, and outraged. And because long after we close the book, the memory of her still leaves us restless. That's it. If you enjoyed this deep dive, drop a like and let me know in the comments. Do you agree that Umbridge is the most hateful character, or would you nominate someone else? And don't forget to subscribe for more essays. If this video gets 1,000 likes, I will do a deep dive on Dolores' life, things that are not in the books or movies. Thank you for watching.